Hey everybody, this is my friend Corey Lankford. We played college football together, and Corey and I used to actually go to church together. He used to ride in the back. Me and Lauren would drive him, and we fell in love with this guy. And you will too, okay? He's a creative. He loves his family. He's a very open, authentic, and vulnerable leader. I think you're going to love today. Today's very long, but great discussion. Corey Lankford, good to be with you, man. So we've been talking for a long time, like an hour or two before this.
Yes.
So we're amped up. But we talked about this before. Corey, you're the friend that I could talk to about any topic. We could just kind of jump in. So who knows where today's going to go.
Yeah.
It's going to be good, man.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I don't know if the audience really knows how we really met, but
Yeah.
I
We got to
remember-
jump back into that.
Yes, yes, we
fun.
do. Let me know when you're ready for
No,
me.
you go ahead. Go ahead. Do your thing.
Well, I
I'd
would
love
say-
to hear your side of the story.
Even though we played football together, this was one of the most impactful things for me.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we played football together, it really wasn't that because you were on offense and I was defense, and that was like hatred between two teams.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So it wasn't that. It was upper room.
Yeah.
Thursday nights, Geneva College.
Yep.
That little church that was there on the campus. I remember you all had your teams cheering for people when they came in.
Yeah.
And I was dealing with...
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Dude, I was dealing with depression.
Oh.
I was dealing with secret struggles and sin
Yeah.
in that dorm room, away from home. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm gonna go to service. I'm gonna go to service. And I came in and they were like, you made it. And I was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But when they did that, it was like they were taking garments of heaviness off of me.
Yeah.
And so I came in feeling like it's like my birthday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I sat in the back. I was like, I'm sitting in the back. I had my little football hoodie on.
Yeah.
The black sweatsuit we'd always wear. And I sat in the back, and I never forget you guys, the way you worshiped. It wasn't a limit to it. It wasn't like all right, 20 minutes and out. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, we're done, let's move on. I remember we were singing a Hillsong song, all I need is you, Lord.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You guys, you stayed in that, just churned in it for like an hour. And I'm just like,
that's a long time.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're in college, just like, hey, we don't have anything better to do. Let's stay here. Let's just do it.
Let's just do it.
It was great. Those are great days.
Dude, and I really, at that point, I was like, you were the beginning for me of a whole different kind of believer. I had never really met a believer that was like you. You know what I mean? Everybody else was really, really rigid, really, really hard.
Was that how you grew up?
Yeah, I grew up in Church of God in Christ.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So you were going to hell every other day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Is that like Baptist-costal?
You know what I mean? Baptist-costal. It was like, it's Pentecostal.
Yeah.
Right? Real heavy. So a lot of, shouting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a lot of that. Very hard preaching, but very tough. When I say, I know the Bible says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a healthy fear.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a holy fear. It was like I don't know if God really has forgiven me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
So it was an anxiety.
Yeah.
That, what do I do with the sin I'm still dealing with?
Yeah.
Like, I know he's forgiven me. And I'm telling you, I carried this for years where I was like, I don't understand this. He's forgiven me, but I'm still going to go to hell. I'm like, then why am I just not living my life the way I want to live it then if I'm still going to lose? I just didn't understand.
Yeah.
And there was a teaching of the grace of God and the understanding of what Jesus did in the New Testament that I didn't really understand. And a lot of churches, and I'm not saying that this is wrong, but you have to understand it in a biblical sense. You got to know with what happened when Jesus came. Because if we stay in the Old Testament, right, without understanding him being the high priest, the new high priest for us, and his sacrifices, that atonement for our sins.
Yeah.
If we don't understand that, we will still be living under the law. As Paul was talking about really heavily, like living in the law, living under the law. Like that's why they had to keep killing stuff and like, oh man, here's a pigeon, I did something wrong. I need to kill the pigeon. You know what I mean?
Who is that?
I don't know. I don't know. It's the guy that, man, keep drinking. Here's a pigeon. You know what I mean? Like, I just, but it was like, okay, you keep killing these animals because God needed a blood sacrifice. Yeah. But it was like, when Jesus came, he was like, I am the last atonement. It's it. It's it with me. My blood is it. And understanding that in the believer's life is so essential, because how am I a Christian and I'm still depressed? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how am I looking like God doesn't love me? I'm still, yeah, I accepted him as my savior, but every area is not touched yet.
Yeah.
Is there patience for me? Or am I going to go to hell? So I became a very high performing believer.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, really performance-based, get very heavy. And you'll notice that in a lot of Baptist churches, Church of God in Christ, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Everybody's ready to grab a mic. They're ready to, like, get really active in ministry, because that is equated as righteousness.
Yeah. Okay.
You need to be doing something for the Lord.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So everybody's like, I'm a prophet, I'm an apostle, and they're throwing names around and gifts around.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But
yeah, I never understood the title thing. I never understood the title. Like, when somebody comes into our environment and they're like, I want to be called this, and it's a title, I'm like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
You know?
Did you notice that earlier I asked you, like, how do you like to be called? It comes from that culture.
Yeah. Okay.
One of it's deep in the African American culture.
Yeah.
And this is really wild, that one of the most aspiring positions back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, in a time where there was a lot of racial prejudice, was the church.
Yeah.
The highest respected man was the pastor.
Yeah.
So throughout generations, ministerial positions in the Black community were aspired after very strongly, because that's the only way you're going to get some respect. Because back then, it wasn't the owners of the banks or the business owners and stuff like that. I mean, now, Black culture is like, buying up everything and, business owners and things like that. But back then, you didn't have that opportunity to do that. So it was like, if you was a deacon or an elder or a bishop or a pastor, everybody wanted to be like a name. And now people are like going prophet crazy, because they're like, the power of a prophet.
Yeah.
But no one teaches about the dark sides of the gifts. So, you know what I mean? You may be a prophet. The other dark side of it is arrogance. You know what I mean? What happens when you feel like you never miss?
Yeah.
The Lord is speaking to me right now.
Yeah.
Who are you to tell me I'm wrong? Go take the garbage out.
Right.
You know what I mean? Who are you talking to? I am the prophet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I feel you. So that's the background you grew up with, and you came in exposed to something different for the first time. I never realized that.
Yeah. It's just different. I hadn't fellowship, and I hadn't fellowship with interracial ministries at all.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, coming out of the Black church and going to Geneva, you had homeschoolers that never came around any other culture.
There was a woman who hadn't seen a Black man until she got to college.
No, I believe it. I 100% believe it. She probably pulled her backpack up to the back of her neck, looked both ways, and ran across the street like that.
I was like, you've never met a Black person?
Yeah, this is a true story, right?
This is a true story.
Okay, and she told you that?
She was living in
What did
somewhere
she
in
say?
Michigan.
Oh, wow.
And she was just like, where I grew up, there was never Black people.
Wow.
And I do know that there's areas the Black people are just not in. Like a lot of Midwest, you know what I mean? We're in the coast, right?
Yeah,
Where the slave trade happened and everything,
okay.
Georgia and everything like that. And then going up to New York and stuff, and then California and stuff. But in the middle, like Montana and stuff like those middle. Now, Black people are trickling into those areas, but you'll notice people aren't there.
Yeah.
So you can grow up your whole life and just see us on TV.
There's a whole lot of white people on survival shows. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see any brothers on there.
No, this is tired of surviving. We've been surviving forever. We're like, man, we're just like, it's a tough time.
Do you ever watch a survival show? Probably not.
I don't know. It's just, I don't want to be out there. So it doesn't really interest me.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's probably where she grew up, in the middle area.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like,
Period.
Nobody wants to live there.
Yeah. So but we're in a different space, and ministry has really affected that. I know. I love talking about this stuff. I do. I love talking about this stuff. I mean, but no, like, just the whole entitlement thing. And so I don't walk in any titles.
Yeah.
People call me. They'll be like, Pastor. I'm like, stop doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I literally, like, somebody called me bishop, and I'm like,
Corey, you have a lot of gifts, man. Like, so speaking, poetry, CWL creative, right? Yeah. Like, you're very creative. I've always known you as creative. And I remember when I met you too, I think you were sitting down on the bench in the locker room. You had your hood up, and I'm like, Always. Hey man, like, I run this ministry, and you like looked up and you were receptive to it. And when I would ask guys, because it was scholarship back then, you never knew who was a Christian when they first came in. I didn't know that the school was a Christian school when I first went in there. I had no clue. Bible's a logo.
Not on the football team.
No, yeah.
Everybody else was saying, but the football team was like, I've been recruited.
Yeah. Well, that was it, right? And so like you look around, you're like, I have no clue who's a Christian here. But now I was a junior, so I was an upperclassman. Yeah. I was a leader, so I'm like, man, I'm gonna try to bring in a lot of these freshmen and show them the love of God, and I remember there was a spotlight on you, dude. And we went to church together, you came.
Did you know I was a minister then?
What does that mean? No,
I was in ministry, even in that dark space.
Ministry? Oh, you were in ministry. I thought you said something else.
I was a minister.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You said at 15, right?
Yeah.
So, how does that even happen?
My parents.
Yeah.
My parents. I personally would never do this.
That's a lot of pressure.
Dude, I stopped getting in prayer lines at 15. Yeah. I was like, how do I go get prayer now? Like, I am the prayer.
That put a whole level of responsibility on you that I just feel bad as your friend you had to carry.
I lost my virginity at 15 at the same time. Yeah. So I tell people, I said, I had two giants growing up in my life. I had a giant of darkness and I had a giant of God's call, and they were both growing up at the same time.
Oh, man.
And it was very difficult because it was like, God would open up doors for me, come speak and things like that. But the other giant was there too. Yeah. You know what I mean? And he'd be like, hey, I'm right with you. Yeah. And it was like, I didn't know how to cry for help. And I remember there was a time I was like really messing up. I was like, I told my dad, I said, Dad, I need you to sit me down. Like, I need you to chastise me. Yeah. Get me out of the spotlight. Like, I want to go heal. But I was the pianist. Mm-hmm. I was the worship leader. I was doing all of the functionality of the ministry. And I was like, they were kind of like, yeah, that kind of comes with the territory of ministry. And I was like, what do you mean? Yeah. I was like, help me. And they kind of like, Corey, you're going to be okay. You gave me like a little pat. And I was like, okay, so when you get in ministry, no one deals with you anymore. Because what happens with a lot of ministries, and it can happen in any ministry. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You start to experience, so when people first start a ministry, there's an authenticity. I just love God. They might start in their living room or start with their wife and they're like, man, we just want to reach people for the Lord. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, oh, it's beautiful. And God is moving through that sincerity. And then here comes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and more people are coming. Now you're looking for a space. And now you're like, you got a space and then more people are coming and you fill up that space. And you're like, oh man, God is moving. You're getting excited. And before you know, you come up on a Sunday and it's 100 people out there. And there's 200 people out there. And hey, they're giving to the glory of God, and now there's investments. And now you're like, man, I really got to study now. There's a lot of people coming. Yeah. In this moment is where a leader can lose his focus. Mm-hmm. And it becomes growth focused. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it becomes the pressure of the expectation from the people. Yeah. Am I relevant enough? And then on top of that, when you become their pastor, can you navigate them through all of the terrains and the areas of their life? And then they leave. Yeah. Hey, pastor, we just feel like we can't grow here anymore. Mm-hmm. So now you're dealing with rejection. Mm-hmm. You're like, what are you saying? Yeah. I can't lead you? Oh, and I watch my parents deal with rejection every time someone would leave the church. Yeah. They would be angry, but they still had to preach. So it was like they were preaching through their emotions. And then there was like quarreling within the ministry. And then people that didn't like my mom, but they loved my dad. And people that loved my dad and didn't like my mom. I think I said that both ways.
Everybody understands it.
Right. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Willy Wonka.
It was sides that would happen you got it. A lot. And so there really wasn't room for a person who was moving the ship along to say, I need to get off and heal. Yeah. Like my family's falling apart. My ministry's falling apart. And I realized that my parents were doing the same model that they were under in the Church of God in Christ. Man, we were at the church every day in the Church of God in Christ. It was something every day. Yeah. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It was a Terry service on Friday. Saturday was another service. And then once you be back on Sunday, and then the Sunday evening, it was horrible.
Yeah, like, and you're a kid growing up in that, and
I'm like, we're always at church. Yeah. But it was a system like, hey, God lives here at church. You need to be here. And if you missed a service, they would guilt trip you. Oh, yeah. So people were like really hurt. Like, the idea of like resting on a Sunday or something like that was like, oh, what do you mean? You should be in the house of the Lord. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so it just really devastated families and marriages. And pretty much almost all of those families and marriages I grew up in those churches have fallen apart. Yeah, yeah. Because they did not have the foundation And I never forget, it was a time that the Lord told my dad, I never forget, I was a little kid. He went off to church, and we knew, 7 o'clock, you got to go, you're a deacon, or you're in the ministry team or whatever. He was like, we'll see him at like 10:30. All of a sudden, he came back at like 7:45. We were like, Dad, what are you doing here? He's like, the Lord told me to go home. Got us together, and we all went to go play miniature golf.
Oh,
Dude,
that's awesome. That was the best day of your life, probably. Just looking back, that's crazy.
It said to me, God broke the rules,
Yeah.
but was it really his rules?
Right.
And I was like, what?
So you're a
And
deep
it
thinker even back then.
blew my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, God loved us that much for miniature golf? But he literally was like, go be with your family.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, how many people, men of God, who were like, I got a word, I got to preach this, I have to do this.
Yeah.
God's like, no, go home.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not listening. And they go and they feel like, I'm doing all this for you. And he's like, I don't need you to do this for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I need you to be healthy. I need you to be whole. And I need you to be happy.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised like how many leaders are secretly depressed.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Usually the harder someone is preaching against sin, the more I think they're struggling.
Yeah.
It's like, man, they're pointing at everybody else. And a lot of times, like what I've seen now in 20 years of ministry is it's a smoke screen. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Guys, keep the attention over there.
Like, why are you so hard on that subject? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're really
there's
hard.
this one subject you talk about all the time,
Yeah, you're struggling, bro. You're struggling.
Right. And it's tough. I mean, we all have passions in certain areas where the Lord really deals with our heart to help people. And, it comes out of maybe some struggle that we had in the past even.
Mm-hmm.
But shoot, man, like it's this understanding for me when we can look at people in the midst of the craziest sin of their life and still feel compassion and understand that they didn't choose that just out of nowhere, that they're just not all, they're like we say, oh yeah, that person just is an all bad person. They're all bad. No, most of the people that I've counseled who have been caught up in affairs or addicted to pornography or, or have even like just broken up organizations, these people have done that out of the pain of their own heart, trying to heal themselves rather than trusting the Lord. Right?
So, and it's always that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think
it always goes back to a hurt. It always goes back to an unhealed part of your life. Yeah.
And that, if you teach a series about that, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because it's everything.
Yeah.
You start realizing that their finances are connected to that. You know what I mean? Their relationships are connected to that. Habits are connected to that.
Yeah.
What they say, what they post, what they did, what they wear. You'll start finding where the root system is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? To why they do what they do. And then when that compassion comes on. I mean, I had a friend one time, man. He was one of my best friends. But he hated me because I had a relationship with my dad. He secretly envied me very heavily. We fell out really, really bad. And love him to death. I still reach for him. Like every year, I'm like, happy birthday, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's real like, I was Superman, he was Batman. So I love Superman. Like, I'm Clark. And he was like, I am the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Everything was dark for him.
Yeah.
He loved, I don't know if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan at all, but he was.
Okay. No.
Vegeta. He liked
Vegeta,
all of the dark characters
Okay.
that had a level of righteousness, but no one understood them.
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But his dad had a whole other family. He just didn't want him.
Oh,
So he was like, you have the capability to be a father,
yeah.
but you don't want to father me. So that ripped him apart.
Yeah.
And he felt, because I was fathered by a dad who was, compassionate and I can lay on his chest, that he was like, you're better than me because you've had that. And so he secretly mourned me. And I remember I would be mad at him like, man, he talked about me and this and that. And God was like, has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
You have to love him. He's hurting. So it's, guys are dealing with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. You dealt with a lot of rejection and a lot of people put a lot of expectation on you from a young age.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So when you got into Geneva, like you started, what happened there? Was that hard?
Well,
to get into Geneva, to see like that girl who never, from Michigan. That's
right?
a crazy story.
I know. It's super, super crazy. The Geneva experience was was different. I wasn't far from home. I realized like back then it felt far. But
Yeah,
I'm like, man, it's like 45 minutes to an hour from my
Yeah,
house, you know?
yeah.
But I was alone with me for the first time.
Okay.
You know, and I was scared of that because
Yeah.
I had some issues, and I was like, I don't know if
Yeah.
I want to be alone with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was
Yeah.
different. But I loved being at school. I loved having my backpack full of books.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I was mentored by Professor Harvey Johnson.
Oh, I love him, man. Dude, I love him. He was grossly misunderstood on that campus,
Oh,
but
man.
he would bring me in too. He'd just speak over my life. We would talk. We'd have lunch together. Harvey's the man. So you met him probably in acting class or something like that.
He was my mentor. He was my
okay.
professor over my academics.
Oh, what a good man to be
Yeah.
connected with. You ever talk to him?
Yeah.
Cool.
We started meeting like 2 years ago. I reached out to him. I said, I want you to mentor me again.
Yeah.
Literally.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was like, can we reconnect? And we connected at a McDonald's, and we're talking just like we never like lost touch.
Yeah.
We could talk for hours. We did that in college. We would talk in his office for
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
He just understood a lot of things, and he understood darkness too. He understood how you can go down a very dark road and get lost.
Yeah.
And I needed people who didn't just judge darkness.
Yeah.
I liked people who studied it.
Yeah.
And they were like, I don't want to judge you. I want to help you understand that you're not all bad. That's what we do. We label ourselves. We're like, oh, I'm unusable. God doesn't love me. And that's the first thing. Because, I mean, dude, people didn't know. I went through a really dark time in college where I couldn't seem to please God with good living.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't beat this thing. I was like, I can't beat it, Lord. And I was like, God, I've been asked you to take this away from me so many times. You're either not listening or you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And I went the total opposite direction. I never forget sitting in my dorm, sat in the dark, and I literally invited the enemy into my life. I said, if I can't fully serve God, then I'm not going to serve God. I said, come on, enemy. You want me? You want me? You want to use me? All right. I sat in the dark. And I mean, I can't believe I got that dark.
Yeah.
I was a soundtrack guy. I used to love soundtracks to all kinds of movies. I'm talking about scary movies, Gladiator, Lion King. Like, if it was out, I had the soundtrack. I put a playlist together of all the darkest parts of the soundtracks. Like, all of the scary, like, movie Insidious, I'd have the soundtrack to it. I got all the dark soundtracks, and I put them on in a row. Man, I was like trying to conjure something. But I was depressed.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I really want to be a good man. I really want to love God with all of my heart, all my strength, and all my mind. But I can't beat this. And I've prayed to you, God, take this out of my life. Take this out of my life. And it's like, you see other people like, I got healed. I'm better. I'm living a good life. And I'm like, so you're just going to help him? You're not going to help me?
Right.
So my brother ended up failing out of school. He had a full scholarship at Boston College.
Boston College. Then he went to Cal U. I remember.
Yeah.
Oh,
you remember that?
He came to the young adult ministry a couple times.
Wow. I didn't know that.
How's he doing?
He's doing great.
Good.
Just had a daughter.
Good.
Yeah,
awesome.
has a son, has a daughter. We're like actually having the same family.
Yeah,
like
okay.
Literally, I had my son, he had his son.
Yeah.
I had my daughter, he had his daughter.
I remember he had like 2% body fat, it felt like. I was like, man, this guy's jacked. Was he a linebacker or safety? He was a linebacker.
He was a safety. He was a punter. He was a quarterback. He never got off the field in high school.
Yeah, okay.
Incredible athlete.
Yeah.
Incredibly attractive.
Yeah.
I mean, girls, like, that was one of the reasons why he failed out. He was like partying all the time. You know what I mean? Like celebrities at those D1 schools.
Yeah.
Like, people don't understand that. Like, that's almost NFL level.
Yeah.
Some of those stadiums are bigger than the NFL stadium.
Yeah.
So he was experiencing a level of life, and he didn't have that discipline. You know? But when he failed out, it hit my financial aid package at Geneva. So it was like immediately they got a report that like they were giving me like $8,000 because there was 2 kids in school. And when he fell out, it hit the system and said there's a need change. And they billed that to me.
Oh,
and that billing to me was like, oh man, I gotta go. Like, I can't afford it. Like, I didn't know my parents were going through some financial issues at the time, and they weren't really saying nothing. I couldn't get a loan, but I really felt like it was the Lord saying, I'm getting you out. You've learned what you need to learn. Professor Harvey Johnson and all those.
Yeah.
The deposit has been made. I got to get you out because you're going down. And man, me resigning, I wanted to finish. I think I would have died.
Yeah.
I was so low.
Yeah.
And no one could see it.
No, I couldn't see it when I was with you, but
Yeah.
was that around the same time or?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, I would in practice it was cool. When I was around the guys and I was hitting, and I was
Yeah.
active, But after practice, I go to the room, I'd be low.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there were girls who I was cool with, but they just wanted my time. And they couldn't see it.
Yeah.
I was like, how come nobody can see how depressed I am? And
Yeah.
I was like, and this was the wild thing too. No shade on the campus or anything like that, but I was like, all these believers and nobody has discernment enough to look through the mess.
Yeah.
I was like, where's the prophet? Like, where's the real person who can say, God told me to tell you that you're in trouble? Man, I would have broke down.
Yep.
And that was, I would literally walk around campus like, I wonder who has power.
Yeah.
I wonder who has discernment.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who can see that I'm drowning?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's something I kind of started to do in my life is pay attention to people a little bit extra.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you all right? Not judging you, but like, man,
Yeah.
let's talk, man. Like, you okay?
Yeah.
And guys feel safe. Like, man, I can open up. I don't care what you tell me.
Yeah.
You tell me the darkest thing. You know,
Yeah,
but-
we tell people that you could find your calling where your pain and your compassion meet. You know, you gotta.
Yeah.
You had pain, but now you could feel compassion for that individual because they're going through the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I'm grateful I got to come home. I was in church again.
Yeah.
You know, I got to be around family and it kept me. But that isolation up there, dealing with that. And I was just, I kind of had an odd with God. I was like, why won't you fix me?
I mean, you get along with everybody. But I could see the isolation there. It's a different. It was a different feel back then. I don't know if it's the same.
Yeah.
But just people were just in their own world.
Yeah. Yeah. And
You know?
you can easily get lost. You know what I mean? And and what happens when, people like to be like, I'm the lone wolf, I got this, I got my system. But what happens if you break your leg as the lone wolf? You're just
Yeah.
"Ah!
Yeah. Right. Right.
Ah!" You know what I mean? Like, you don't have
Like, I
anybody.
guess I needed some friends after all.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
And God's like,
Yeah.
listen, God is community. He's community within himself.
Yeah.
So he's like, I built you to be in community. Like having a church home, having a fellowship. Like we might think all these things are corny, these little small groups, and we got these little folks. Man, these things are
That's
saving.
life.
Dude.
Yeah, it's life.
Especially men. Like I have a passion for men.
Yeah.
Men's ministry. Not to say I do it, but man, when guys get together and we just talking.
Yeah, well, it might be, honestly, it might be in your future, man. As we've been talking all day here, it feels like, in a lot of regard, it's like you have a lot to give men. You have a lot to share with men. That is for sure.
It's just transparency.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
just transparency. Like I'm never gonna, be like, oh God, you got an attractive guy, you got tats all he's ripped up and everything, or he's smart, he's a genius like my man over here.
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? There's attraction, right? And we all like are looking for a level of value. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
how am I considered valuable? You know what I mean? What do I have to offer? And every man has, okay, I'm gifted in this. That's my thing. That's my offer. Okay, all right, cool. What are you? Man, I'm jacked. You know what I mean? What are you? I went to the NFL. What are you? I got a lot of money. I got investments. What are you? Here's my beautiful woman right here. Every guy will have their thing. But then you got the guy who's like, I don't really know who I am. I don't know what I do. You know what I mean? Or he might be like, I'm really good at video games, man. I'm like the #1 in the world in Call of Duty. We need these attributions to make us feel valuable. I never forget my wife said something. Man, dude, it broke me down. She said to me, who are you without your gifts? And I sat in the kitchen. I started to cry. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I was like, I've always used the gifting as the cape.
Yeah.
Corey Lankford, you're so gifted. Yes. You know what I mean? I create stuff. That's what I do. When I would get sad, I'd create. It was my way of like, I shall build something for you because I am a creator. You know what I mean? But without the gift, I was like, will God love me if I'm not making something for him?
Yeah.
Because that's what I grew up in, that performance high generation.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So now it's like, okay, now I have to love God as a citizen, as a regular.
No, I know. I battled the same thing when I came out of ministry at the church we were at before. It was a year and a half. I was doing construction work, and I'm like, okay. Like I remember sitting on my floor in my bedroom, and the Lord's like, nobody wants you to speak, and nobody needs any counsel from you. You don't have any emails. Nobody's reaching out.
How did
Dude, we
you,
didn't
how
have
did
any
you
friends.
process that?
Well, the Lord was like, I remember the Lord speaking to me at that time. He said, it's just me and you. Am I enough? And I honestly answered him like, no, you're not.
Ooh,
because
you told
ministry
him the
was, I mean, yeah, like that's all he knows anyways, right? You might as well just be real. Like, nah, you're not enough, God. I want you to be, but it's just not, no, know? And so through that year and a half, I really learned to then just what happened was in burnout ministry, we were doing way too much. My body started shutting down. I was unhealthy in certain areas and I really needed God's touch, but I was working so hard. I wasn't even reading my Bible. So listening to messages from other pastors just so I could have something to share, know?
Yeah.
And it's like embarrassing to even say like, yeah, I got to that point. But that's what, when you talked about, I think the abandonment, if there's a consumeristic culture in the United States, I'm very against the celebrities of, it's not like I have anything against celebrity pastors, right? It's the idea of a pastor being a celebrity I have an issue with because there's expectation that comes along with these guys and they're human and they're going to make mistakes and they've got a dark side to them. But people don't want to see it. They just want to see the beauty in them and the anointing and the calling and the grace and the gifting. That's all they want to hold on to because there's something inside of that. If I'm connected to this person, then it's validating this inside of me, right? And, I was like, I was unhealthy, but I couldn't tell anybody about it, right? Same. So we're kind of in the same spot.
Because the word that I think about is sustainability. How do you sustain at that level of intensity?
Yeah.
Like I get nervous with the pastors in this generation.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but like when you have like a really, really strong following.
Yeah.
Right? You get like
it's a lot of pressure.
And you gotta keep
pressure.
I'm like, how do you sustain it?
Right.
How do you keep up? And I know, there's God and there's the systems. I get that. I get that. But what I want to know is if your voice is the primary voice that's keeping the glue of your ministry together.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? There's no other voices trained up.
Right.
Right? You know what I mean? Like people, they come to the church to hear the prophet. They come to the church to hear you know what I mean? We want to hear them. And then somebody else comes up like, hey, good morning. Pastor, he's taking a break with his family. Open your Bibles. Everybody's like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But when you got a whole team that's on the payroll and everything, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's true.
You want somebody who people are like, man, I love when this pastor shares. I love this. Like there's versatility.
Yes. Yeah.
Which allows you or the leader to say, you know what? I can fall back for a second. Yeah. I can spend some time with God.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because I was listening to this.
Do you know how many times I'm speaking at the church this year, like at Hill City? Less than 25.
You serious?
Yes. Yes. For that reason. We just tell people straight up.
Wow.
I want you to get somebody's best, right?
Yeah.
Every single week that you come. So we got Angie speaking. Yeah. Ben, you met Brian earlier. Yeah. Lauren speaks and I speak. We're doing a simulcast right now of one of my pastors, Robert Morris. I'm like, honestly, Corey, I would much rather live in this world because I think when we even started the church, it was like a rocket ship of expectation of other people's expectation. And I knew what our values were, but no matter what, it would pull us into other people's value system. And I was like, people would be like, oh, it's going to be the next elevation. I'm like, no, it's not. I don't want that pressure. I'm not called to that much. I'm not called to that, Yeah. But my heart went like, I had to go work through the issue. Can I really like reach people and not draw them to me personally? And so then developing a team. And man, on the other side of it, if you're never a part of that, there's insecurity that comes with that because there's great voices around the table.
Right.
Brian is a fantastic teacher, like he honestly, man, like he's one of the best. Ange, Ange, like phenomenal communicator.
Yeah.
Well, what if there's somebody else's favorite? Oh, awesome. That's great. But it's not always great, because you're like, oh no, I want people to, I want to be needed. Like there's a codependence.
Oh, come on.
There's a codependence that we both had to probably, work through a little bit. Like I got in the ministry because I was codependent. I just wanted to solve people's problem.
It's really why the disciples got at one point they started to say, hey, Jesus, who's the greatest among us?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And he literally, he's like, he heard it, but he like picks up this child and he's like, there you go with that. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go with that.
That's a beautiful
If you
picture.
don't come to me like one of these children, meaning I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That arrogance is what got Satan kicked out.
Yeah.
It's that I'm good.
Yeah.
Right? yes, there is a gift. And like even for me, I've had to go through this area and where I've had to ask myself the honest question. Do you love God if you're not serving him? Do you really want him?
Yeah.
If you're not doing anything, can you just sit in a church gifted and quiet and just learn? And in this season of my life, that's where I've been.
There's a whole bunch of boomers saying, nope, no, you can't.
You can't.
But there's a whole bunch of us who are saying, no, like there's a healthy time to disconnect.
Because
there really is. I needed that too. So I'm going to validate it. It was 1.5 years it took for me to not do anything. Yeah. And it was so hard. Pastor Larry was like, I was like, listen, I'll run your teams. I'll do it for free. I just want to get a sales job, not be in ministry. I'll get this in, top shape for you. He's like, no, you'll have plenty of time to work. You need to sit, That Gen Xer, man, he knew. He kept his hand on both generations. Like, man.
And that's what's needed.
Yeah.
Because I know for me, like people know I've done ministry.
Yeah.
They see, like I still write on Facebook and I'll share notes and nuggets and things. And I'll come into a ministry and without fail, someone will go, hey, you still doing any ministry?
Yeah.
And I told my mom this other day. I said, sometimes I feel like Rambo when he later in his movies, he started like hiding in the jungle. I don't do that anymore. It's like we need someone who's skilled in these jungle terrains. You're the guy. It's like I don't do that no more. That's how I started feeling.
Definitely.
Like, this Rambo generation is falling apart. And they're like, we need help.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not a hero anymore, dude.
Right.
And it was just this point where the real reason was because I was like, I don't want to fail God and fail people because I'm still working through this thing that I'm dealing with in my life.
Yeah.
And God said to me, he said, you are making your struggle an idol. It is a big statue now, and you are worshiping it.
Yeah.
You have made it bigger than me.
Yeah.
He uses the things that we deal with as the thing that drives us to our knees. It's like Paul. In the scripture, when he talks about the thorn, if you go a couple verses before, he talks about experiencing some revelation with God that was beyond the realm.
Yeah.
He was getting insight from God. And there's a space of how do I put this? In Psalms it says, who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord? Who shall stand before his holy place? Only he that has clean hands and a pure heart, right? The hill of the Lord is actually an ascension place in the spirit that when we are pure in our hearts and pure with our hands, there's an access point where we can ascend into a principality with God to where we can the enemy's like, where did he, you know what I mean? Like, where did he go? Mm-hmm. There's a place in God's presence that sometimes we miss it, but there's an escape in his presence. Mm-hmm. My wife has experienced it. Mm-hmm. She just kept giving her heart over to the Lord over and over. And there was struggles she had in the beginning of her marriage, and she surrendered that to the Lord. She really started giving it over to the Lord. And she was getting taken up. I was like, what do you mean? She was like, I've been ascending. I'm like, you mean you went upstairs? What do you? She's like, no, God has been taking me to another space in glory. Mm. And I was like, what? What? And she's not speaking. She's not preaching anywhere. But her heart was so pure that God was bringing her to another level of closeness with him. And she was scared. Yeah. She'd be like, it was like she was half asleep, half woke.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want that. I was like, I want to experience another level of place with God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so knowing him in that way, I had to learn through seasons that my gift is not the thing that validates my relationship with God.
Yeah.
It is just me and him.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I was in a rejecting place where people were asking me, hey, are you going to do ministry again? We're looking for some help. And I was scared because there was one ministry who was super popular. Love the ministry. I won't say who they are, but they're super dope, right? And I love the band. I love how they dress. I was like, this is dope. Mm-hmm. And there was this part of me that wanted to be in that ministry, but not necessarily for the ministry.
Yeah.
I was like, it's going to do something for me.
Yeah. Right.
It's going to feed a part of me that God's trying to kill. And I was like, I can't. And I told my wife, I said, I can't stay here. And they keep looking at me. I was like, they keep looking at me. And I was like, I know they want me to be like, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I was like, if I go up here, I'm going to become popular again. And it's not going to be good for me. So we ended up leaving. And we started visiting this church. It's like older, like it's like Gen Z and Gen X in there.
Yeah.
And I came in there, I was just hoping nobody would know me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm working on television and stuff, you know what I mean? So I'm like,
yeah.
I hope nobody knows me in here. I came in and nobody was like, Corey Lankford,
Yeah.
you. It was like, how you doing, man of God? And there was just people kept prophesying to me. Not because they knew me. They didn't know nothing.
Yeah.
And I said, God, I feel safe here.
Yeah.
I feel safe here. But I felt him also say, I am going to call you when it's time, and I want your yes. So now I'm in a season where I'm like, you know what, Lord, I'm not fighting you anymore. If you want me to serve you, you know, just guide me correctly. You know what I mean? Of where you want me to serve, whatever that is. And when I tell you whatever that is, that's not a mic. I'm like, I would be happy sweeping.
Yeah.
I love cleaning. You know what I mean? Like people don't know. Like I used to set up the church all the time. All the stuff, systems, the cording. Like people would leave, I would be wrapping up the wires, putting them together, connecting and stuff. Like that's where I was born at, serving in that aspect. You know what I mean? Where David said, "I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of wickedness." You get to that point where you're like, God, what do you need me to do? Anything? Serving and taking out the garbage, cleaning the toilet is not a low thing. That's a very humbling and wonderful place. Shows a lot about a person's heart. Mm-hmm. You know, and God can trust people like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what position on stage do I get?
Yeah, right.
Like, nah, like, bathrooms need clean? All right, cool. Where the gloves at? Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I got this.
Yeah.
So
you've been out for how long, out of ministry?
I stopped doing ministry in 2020.
I mean, really, like, when we say ministry is vocational ministry, it's, you know, because ministry is who you are, where you are, but like, you know.
Yeah, not like, because I was doing Bible, like through the pandemic, everything was virtual, right? So I was preaching virtual on Sundays. I was doing series and all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
And then I was doing Thursday Bible studies virtually. So I was doing that pretty often. I keep doing this because I think I wear glasses. So if you see me, doing that, I'm trying to pull up my invisible glasses. So I haven't actually, like in 2021, I left ministry.
Yeah. Okay.
And I haven't been teaching at all anywhere.
Okay.
You know, so, but now I teach at a church called Home Church.
Yeah, yeah. With your kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's so funny, like a lead worship, it's so wild. We have a little speaker, a lead worship at home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, jump, jump, jump. And I'm like, and these are it's so funny. I will play the songs that I used to.
Your kids are 1 and 3.
They're 1 and 3.
Okay.
And I'm literally like, we're doing Bible stories and I'm bringing out like Tony the Tiger in my hand and he's reading the Bible stories. And I'm like, this is my ministry.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is greater than any stage. It's greater than any huge auditorium. This they will remember that, you know, dad and mom. And I'm gonna tell you the honest truth. I wasn't doing it for a while. I wasn't the priest at all. My wife was holding it down. Yeah. I was lost. I was like, I don't know who I am now. I'm like, I don't know what to do, you know?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You ever see The Incredibles?
Brother, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You remember when he couldn't be a hero no more?
Yep.
And he's working an office desk, but he's still trying to help people?
Yep.
That's what happens when like pastors and ministers, like, we want to help, but like, we don't know if we're needed. I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
So, but she was holding it down. She was leading them in prayer. She was reading the word over them. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't praying. I wasn't really doing anything, you know, but she was. She was holding it down. And I started coming out.
That's the beauty of having a strong wife as well. Dude. But I think a lot of men, like I grew up, my grandfather, he never went to church. He was a pilot. He'd be up in the air. I'd be like, Grandma, why don't you go to church with us? He's like, I'm closer to God in that airplane than you are in that church. You know, that's what he would say. So I'm like, oh, okay, all right. My dad didn't really go to church. Yeah. But my mom did. So I'm like, okay, that's something women do. Yeah. You know, women go to church. The men focus on their hobbies or work, you know? And, you know, I remember thinking, okay, so all I need to do is marry a strong woman. I'll be all right then. I'll be covered, you know? Like that was the mindset. Yeah. But now that even working with families, like working with youth ministry for a long time, you cannot work against a father, you know? Can't work against a father. Mom's like, I've been trying. When you have an engaged father, a man who is engaging, like leading, he's like the pastor of his home. Yeah. Those kids grow up different. Yeah. It's unbelievable, you know? And
that was the thing I realized. I was like, you're going to lose them if you don't start leading them. Yeah. You know, and it humbled me, man. There'd be times I'd be sitting there crying like, why am I not teaching my kids Jesus? What am I doing? You know, and you're just getting this space where you just start feeling bad for yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I just went through so much in my life. It's like they want God.
Yeah.
They want the God you love, that you say you love. And so we'll be like, all right, we're having church. And they love it. You know what I mean? They love it because, this enemy is trying to get them very young. He got me. He came after me very young.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, I'm just thinking to my kids, like, man, I don't want to fail them. At least, I'm not saying that they're going to not make mistakes, but, train up a child in the way they should go. Like, let me give you foundation. You know what I mean? To know. So.
I was reading the other day, just a gentleman that I like to read after. He asked the question, do you want your children safe or do you want your children strong? And there's an empowering that you can, like, if there's a disempowerment that comes along with keeping them safe. They have to be. The older I get, we've got obviously 5 kids. Shoot, it feels like 15 sometimes, and it's beautiful. But the firstborn is like, oh yeah, like I got the schedule. What are we doing tomorrow? Wants that because that's what we do. It creates safety for them.
Right.
But as they get younger, they get more and more feral. So that's why like the younger children tend to be the ones that'll punch you in the mouth and then pray for you after. Like they just. It's just the older I get, I want my kids to be a little bit more feral.
Yeah.
I love that. I want them to be strong, but I also want to lead that, feral. Right? I want to lead them toward Christ. I want to lead them in compassion. I want to be an example for them. So much so that, like, man, the first person that our son led to Jesus was in our home.
How old is your son now?
13. Yeah, our oldest is 13.
You got a teenager?
Yeah. And then, I got a teenager, and then our youngest boy is 8. So we got 13, 11, 8, 5, and 3 right now in the home. So
oh my gosh.
Crazy. Yeah.
You all, because you and Lauren, like, right out of college.
We got married right away. Yeah, I was ready. I was ready.
It was so great though. Like, you
want to know something funny?
What?
My dad, he's a great guy. But he's like, this is like the day before my wedding. I'm like 22 years old, 21, 22 years old when I got married. And he's like, oh, your mother wanted me to talk to you about sex. So, and I'm like, Dad, it's good. I don't need this talk. And he just kept talking through it. Just kept talking. I'm like, no, Dad, I'm good. Like, really, I know. It's good. He's like, no. And then he started to describe some things that I can't repeat.
But you were like way beyond this. Like
okay, Dad, come on, Like, I could use that talk when I was maybe 15, 14 years old, So one of the rules we have in our family is I'm going to teach my kids about things before they're going to learn it on their own. So...
Shoot. No, I was, how I started learning about it is the girl called my house and said she was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
That's when my parents started being transparent with me.
Wow, yeah.
That's when I was 15.
You were 15, okay.
I was 15. I'll never forget my mom picked me up from football practice, and she turned the radio off. And I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And she was like, did you and such sleep together? I was quiet, that extra quiet.
Yeah.
And she said, she called the house, said she's pregnant. And I just sat there in the car. My life was like, now she wasn't pregnant, but I was secretly in that life. Like this was a young girl who had been through a lot of sexual damage as a young child. Lot of private, horrible things she went through in her life.
Yeah.
So that's all she knew. Like sexual things was how she knew. And she really cared about me. And, but she led me into that dark road. It was like a vampire. Like once you get bit,
right,
you're a vampire. You know what I mean? It's like now you're biting other people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you remember as a young kid, same. Like, and when Lauren and I got together, we said we're gonna remain pure, and we did. That's why I'm like, I was ready. But like, early on, your conscience is like, no, do not step there, don't go there, and you're like, well, everybody's gonna think I'm gay.
Yeah,
I remember thinking that when I was like 15 years old. Well, everybody's going to think I'm gay. I got this hot girl that wants to be with me, and like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And you thought more about what your friends were going to think, and so you cross boundaries because of that, and then you get hooked. You get brought in, right? Man. How many things did we say yes to just because we didn't want to be rejected by our peer group? And brother, I don't know about you, but all those guys that gave me a tough they're not doing so hot right now. I tell that to my son.
Man, you look back at some of the people we went to school with, man, they're in trouble.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
They're in trouble. Especially the girl that was real pretty, everybody wanted.
Yeah.
Well,
She developed early. Now she looks like she's 60 years
No,
old.
I'm telling you, it's always that.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
always a real
Like,
pretty
huh,
one.
What?
She is hitting. She's
Yeah.
hitting. Not that kind of hit. You know what I mean? And no judgment, but like, but then it switches. The one that nobody wanted. She got herself together now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Got her teeth fixed and everything. She's like, I'm handy.
Yeah. Got her teeth fixed and everything.
What? She
yeah.
lost weight. You know what I mean? Look at you.
Yeah.
Dude, it's like that. I feel like I'm
That's
still
funny, dude.
middle grade, where I haven't fallen apart.
Yeah.
God has like kept me together. I gained some weight.
Yeah. You know,
From 175 in high school. I'm like 220 now. I go between 220 and 217.
You're a healthy 220. You're a healthy 220.
Got checked up the other day.
Yeah.
You know, we're all old now. We got to get checked up.
I know. It's
Hey,
nothing's
you
worse.
check up.
Yeah. The doctor goes, I think you're obese. I'm like, what? You know, one of my buddies said the same. It's like, he's like, I'm not obese. I'm full of muscle. You know.
I told my doctor, I said, you know, I'm healthy. I said, but you know what I really need, doc? I was like, I need a babysitter. So I said, I need a babysitter.
Yeah.
You guys got like insurance coverage for babysitters?
Yeah.
Like literally, like I'm like, I just need a little bit of a break. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
One of our staff members gifts us with this with 5 kids. It's like beautiful. Angie Robinson, she's like, you and Zach need time together. To Lauren. And she's like, I'm going to pick up your kids from school and just bring them back here. Why don't you guys go to lunch every Thursday together?
Thursday?
Yeah, we go to lunch every Thursday together.
Wait, she does this every Thursday?
She does that every Thursday for us. Yeah, she's a saint, man.
Dude, I could cry.
She's wonderful. It's been one of the best gifts I've ever received. Because it's so difficult, especially in the foster world, it's so difficult to be able to get time alone, you know?
Because I just sometimes I'm like, if I could just get 4 hours. Like this, being here with you,
Yeah.
this is such a therapy.
It's life-giving, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times work is my escape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not that I'm trying to escape. It's just, you know, even the dog. Like I have a little miniature poodle.
Yeah.
And he's 5. And I can't go to the bathroom by myself.
No.
I go to the bathroom, you hear shh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
He wants
they
to come
pick
in and sit
their
under the
person.
toilet.
Yeah.
Stare. I mean, it could be the middle of the night. If I get up, he'll wake out of sleep and follow me.
That's
Where
hilarious.
you going, Dad?
That is
Where
hilarious.
you going, Dad?
Yeah.
We left him in New York for a year
Oh, okay.
with
okay.
my wife's mom.
Okay.
Because when we had our daughter, he was like growling at the kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it was like, no.
Yeah.
You're a dog.
Yes.
And we just didn't want that moment where he like lashes out.
Yeah.
So he's like, you got to go. I went to New York, left him. He was in the window like, no. So like for dogs, that must have been the most agonizing. That probably felt like 20 years.
Yeah.
So now I think he's a little traumatized. And so
Yeah.
he's like, never get out of my sight.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
where are you going?
Yeah.
You know, what are you doing?
You gonna leave me again? Yeah. You gonna leave
Man,
me this
it's
time?
like-
Where are you gonna leave me?
we gave him serious abandonment issues. I mean, it's sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all the dog lovers
Dude,
like
let's
this.
let's shift to creativity, right?
Yeah, let's
like
go.
you got a passion there, and you really are gifted in that area. Like that's always been in you.
Yeah.
Who've been some of your inspirations in life? Like where did you get inspired creatively?
Man, let me tell you, when I left college, I became a security guard.
Okay.
It was a very big shift for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, man, like I was studying theater communications and I was going to go to New York. That was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go to Broadway. I'm going to act. I'm going to do this thing. I'm young,
Yeah.
no kids. I was like, I'm ready to fight. I know there's a lot of actors out there. I was like, but I got what it takes.
Yeah.
That was my goal. Like I wanted to be in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when I left college, I was like, yo, it felt like I went,
Yeah.
and I was working security
Mm-hmm.
at night, guarding parked cars. And I was depressed. I was like, what? This is not my dream.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm a security guard.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is it. This is it. I went through all this high school education and college education, and I'm guarding parked cars.
Yeah.
2017, this is,
You know what I mean? Like, I was like, this is, what am I going to do? And it was in the basement that I wrote the play Hellway to Heaven that I started doing. That
Yeah.
became a phenomenon in Pittsburgh, saving all kinds of people. But my inspirations was actually the movies. I would go into the movies all the time by myself, and that became my new classroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I don't know how I'm going to ever get there. I didn't,
Yeah.
I wanted to be in Hollywood. I wanted to be like, how do you do this? How do you become a great actor? How do you do this?
Yeah.
And so I would just go to the movies and I would watch. Sometimes I would cry and I would look at the credits and I would be like, I want my name in the credits. And it was like, you know, you just kind of think that that's the greatest, you know.
Yeah.
as But I didn't realize that later in life, I would get behind the camera and get into the editing software. And I'm like, oh, wait, now I build credits.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I can control all of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, they should have never gave me this power. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Now it's
okay.
like I can create anything.
Yeah.
My dad said something to me. He said, man, you didn't wait for anybody to validate you. You validated yourself. I started thinking, I said, man, Hollywood ain't nothing but a place where valuable people made it valuable. The land itself isn't valuable. It's the people, the gifted people, and they just migrated there to where the studios are. So Hollywood could be anywhere. But what I really wanted was to tell a story, you know, through parables.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really the strength of the ministry I feel like God has called me to. I'm more of a ministry in the marketplace.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas I can share the gospel, I can teach and do these things if God calls me to do that. But man, I can make you a movie.
Yeah.
In that movie, I'll put them strings together and that soundtrack and that moment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I feel like movies stick in people like, you know what I mean? You can remember, you know, I was watching this one movie one time. And
Yeah.
that's, you know, when I think about Jesus always telling parables, he was like, you can't understand the mysteries of the kingdom, so I got to tell you a story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is what God is like. There's a guy, he's a son, he's a prodigal, he spent all his money and come back. That's how the Father is. And people go, oh, I get it. So that's kind of like how I like
That's what stories. You've always resonated with stories.
love it,
Just
man.
the individual, the person, the gold inside of everybody.
As a little kid,
that's
man,
cool.
watching movies. You ever see The Never Ending Story?
Oh yeah,
Dude.
I almost thought of a reference for you. Remember when they was walking through the swamp? Whenever the horse was walking through the swamp.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It's
dude,
like-
the saddest part in the world.
Oh, it is. Did you cry?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I did too. My son was like, "Oh, that's sad," but he didn't. My daughter was like, "Oh man," you know. But like, I was like devastated as a kid when the horse
Dude.
died.
It was
Devastated.
Animals back then didn't die. Like you
No,
didn't see.
you're right, yeah.
You know what I
Okay,
mean? It was like they
okay,
kept
yeah.
that from like they wouldn't hurt animals. Well, maybe some war movies or something like that.
Yeah.
It was really like, you know, keep the dog alive or whatever. And the horse is just going down. And he's like holding the horse and he's trying to pull the horse. And he's already in the swamps of sadness. He's running out of time.
Yeah.
And it was like, but what got me about that movie, which was really cool, and a lot of my childhood is in that movie, was the little boy who's reading the story. And he's hidden up in that attic with that coat, with that cover and an apple.
Yeah.
That was what I loved. I loved getting lost in a story, like as a little boy, and being like, this is so cool, this is cozy, I love this.
Yeah, dude,
There was
yeah.
a safety there.
Yeah.
And then when he started seeing himself in the story, and he
Yeah.
was like, this story is interacting with me, it changed my life. I was like, I want that experience where people like to where they're watching something, and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel like this is real to me. It's immersive now. And I believe that scripts can actually be prophetic manuscripts, actually.
Yeah.
Where like someone could be watching a movie or watching a show and they're like, this is my life. This is my life. That like, how did they know that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I got to keep watching this because like, this is my life. So.
I see that in a lot of documentaries. When I watch a documentary, like I'm like, he went through the same thing as a child, and then that caused him to react that way.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's what's going on, you know, in my reaction.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yes.
That's so good. So do you feel like I'm gonna be a little bit? I guess I'm gonna be a little upfront here, but I get it. Whenever you're like, I'm marketplace, right? I get that.
Yeah.
Because and I think that's actually really needed.
Yeah.
I think that we as Christians being tapped into, right? The most creative person ever to exist, the creator of all.
Yeah.
We should be creative. However, we're not seeing true creativity coming out of the church.
Yeah.
And I think it's been because it has to be self-fulfilling. It is, You're created for the purpose of the church. And this is this little box that we have, right? Where as long as your creativity serves the goal of this church, then you can use it. But if it doesn't, just set it on the shelf.
Yeah,
Okay. Because we've got a mission, we've got to go. And you could go over here.
Right.
Did you ever feel boxed in like that?
Well, when I was serving in the ministry, I learned a lot of the technical stuff and things. I would use it for church. You know what I mean? The church videos, you know, the audio and things like that. But the Lord started hinting to me something that I was like, this is really cool. I'll share it with you, right? Because maybe you'll use it. He started to show me immersive theater church. I said, what? It was ministry where the sound and tech team were working together with the word and coordinating sound and lighting and effects to help with the pastor's message. I said, that would be really cool if you're teaching about Noah's Ark and now all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you're hearing the creaks of the boat and you're hearing the oceans. And there's nobody saying, all right, hit that track now. No, they know. Like the team knows. They coordinated it. And I said, how much more could that teach people when they're now in the story? You can even put actors to come up on stage while the pastor's preaching. And they're just moving throughout the story. Because it reminds me, if you ever been to Sight and Sound in Lancaster.
I haven't been there yet. I haven't been there. But I hear I need to go.
Dude.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, and it's so anointed. I went to go see the story of David. I cried through the whole thing.
Okay.
The level of
that.
magnitude of the sets.
Yeah.
There's a stage in front of you, but it surrounds you. They got real animals.
Yeah.
Rocking through the things, camels, horses, doves are flying through. They're all trained.
Yeah.
I mean, it is immaculate. All for God, all for Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's what began to spark me was like, I was always an audio visual learner.
Okay.
You can't just tell me the answer. Like, this is how you get there. You got to tell me and you got to show me.
Yeah. Let me see it.
Yeah, let me see it. You know what I mean? And so for me, it wouldn't stick. That's why God always used movies for me. He's like, all right, go to the movies. I'm like, okay. He said, you see how this guy was caught up in this situation and then he got you? That's what I'm trying to tell him. I'll be like, I get it now. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm like, how many more people would learn through, like movie messages in church?
Yeah.
I like, going to ministries where they show a lot of video, cool stuff. Like, I used to be very pivotal in, how do I put it? Kind of like the methodology of a church's formula. I always studied it. From the time they come in, what is their experience? From the moment they come in to the smell. Are they smelling coffee? Or is it background music? What's on? What's playing while they're sitting down? Who's greeting them? Who's talking? Then how do we start? Does it start with music? Doom, 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 doom. Come on, everybody, let's praise God. Does it start with a video? Is it dark in the room? Is there smoke going through the LED lights? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do they feel like they're in a movie theater? Do they feel like they're in a classroom? What do they feel? Do they feel welcome? Do they feel like they're going to be entertained? Do they feel like this is going to be powerful? Is there tension? I like to create tension.
Yeah.
Similar to like it's going to be a show, but it's going to be an experience. Like the people have prepared for this experience with God. I think that's very good. So I've always studied that. How's the worship flow? Then how does it transition into who's coming up and talking from here? Are we going to talk announcements? Are we going to go into offering? Are we going to go, what is the system? Because really every church has a basic formula.
Right.
They might splice it up.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, it could be like studio lighting and like, how can we do this to where, how many points in this ministry could minister to someone? If they don't get the word, they got the greeting at the door, because I learned that through you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they don't get that, they get that. What if it was the ministry of the hospitality? What if it was the coffee? You know what I mean? What if it was that? What if you got something there? Or the lady who was just really kind and she greeted and she gave a hug. What was it in the, oh man, it was that message, that movie that played, that thing really got me. Or it was the fact that we're so tired and then there was a kids ministry. We got a break from the kids. And then the kids came back and they learned something. There's so many ways, and I've always been like interested in like how church ministry flowed in people's experience from point A to point Z.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was like a passion. I don't know how I got out there.
No, you're good. You're good. So like, where does creativity come from for you then? Like, where does this creative like inspiration come from?
I just think it's I just think it's I think everything is a story.
Yeah.
I do. I think everything is a story. I'm always recycling everything. I go through something bad and I'm like, that would be a good movie.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think everything is teachable and recyclable.
Yeah.
And everything can be made into art. So it's like you see somebody who paints something really, really dark, but it's $1 million painting. And then you ask them, so what inspired you? I went through a very dark period in my life. And so you see this painting. You know what I mean? I just think art is a collaboration of us trying to tell a story, whether it's through music, whether it's through a visual, whether it's a picture or a song. I think that if you can curate that, you can begin to translate who you are to people through art. And that's what I love to do. I'm really talking to people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm saying like, what did you feel when you saw this or you heard this? So like on my channel on Instagram, I'm in this 30-day challenge with my Atlanta team. I have a team that's generally out of Atlanta, incredible cinematographers.
Awesome.
I mean, they are like man, they just got a great following. One guy got like over 40,000 people following him on his channel, and he just shoots really good stuff with Sony A7 III, Sony A7 IV. I mean, these are really top-notch cameras and things like that. He just does great, and they fly him all over to do what he does. So we meet every Monday. We talk about how to run our business, what we could do better, you know. So we're on a 30-day challenge where I have to put out content for 30 straight days. So this is day 7. So like later on, I'll make a reel, you know, for my day 7. But it's been pulling creativity out of me that I've been sitting on because of shame.
Yeah.
I've been hiding creativity because it's been my voice, but the spirit of shame was over my life for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was telling me, shh, don't say nothing.
Yeah.
You have nothing to say, right?
Tell me more about that, man. Like where that,
Woo! It comes from a combination of bad mistakes.
Uh-huh.
Bad mistakes in your life. You say, okay, I made these mistakes, and then I made these mistakes with people who know about my mistakes.
Yeah.
And then you wonder, did they forget, or have they now marginalized me into that perspective?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you get to this point where like, I feel like I don't have the right to speak because of what I've done. And so that shame takes you hostage and it paralyzes your voice. And so what I started to realize, man, I've been really ministering to people on my page about doing an audit on the voices that deposit into your life.
Okay.
Because you start thinking about it, you start thinking like, if you have a great idea and all of a sudden this negative thought comes in and be like, man, nobody's gonna hear that. That's lame. What is that voice?
Right.
You have to audit that. You're sort of saying like, okay, who speaks to me in my circle? I get real detailed. Okay, your spouse, your friend. What are you listening to music-wise? What is your choice? Who's your favorite artist? Okay, what are they saying in the music? Because I used to do music. And I used to do rap music, and it was, you know, Christian rap music, and it was called deliverance music, man. People would get set free, listen to the music. But what people did not know is our producer, we would lace the track with a prayer that could not be heard on the music. So we would all pray, Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you, God. We did it. And it was so low in the track, no one can hear it. But the track was laced with power.
Nice.
So we don't know when people are like in these studios and stuff, what is it laced with?
Yeah.
What's happening in the studio while they're making the track? What is the spirit that's being communicated through? And so then you go into these avenues. And
Do you think that's popular? Do you think people do that?
Oh.
But in the opposite direction? I know like in the 70s it was backmasking. And you can look up online like all these hit songs that were backmasked and they had secret messages, you know?
I think what they do is anything that is not surrendered to the enemy is surrendered to God is surrendered to the enemy, right? And so being that, you know, Satan was over the ministry of music in heaven, he knows how powerful music is. He wants to be the prince of the air, right? So his battle is often in media. So media is also the word for the medium in the in-between. And so it's a negotiable place where music can either weigh you on one side or another. That's why you got certain music that'll put you in a certain mood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or make you angry or make you depressed. There are melodies and keys. There are kingdom keys that there is a sound. And I took lessons to learn how to play the piano like professionally, but I never really committed to it. But I have a gift to play certain melodies that unlock certain things in people. And a lot of times when I play, I'll just be crying. Like it's just a sound that like it'll come out.
Yes.
And it's a combination of do, like that certain, if you remember Encounters of the First Kind.
Yeah.
Remember they would communicate?
Brother, that's exactly, I was like, what is that? Close Encounters of the First Kind?
And that's really like kingdom.
Yeah.
Like there are musical sounds that God can give a worshiper or a songwriter that cause deliverance to happen when they hear that song birthed out of that place.
Yeah.
And so on the opposite, in darkness, if the industry is, who's your audience? The audience is young people or women, and this artist is very lustful, lots of sexual music. There is a sound and there's a melody that is given by the enemy to a person who is not yielded to God.
Yeah.
That, ooh, I like that. And they're in there, everybody's high, everybody's drugged up. And so the gates are open. So the enemy comes in and whispers in the ear, hit like this. Do, 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 do.
Yeah.
Oh, you hear that? Do, 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 do. Oh, right that. And then the dude gets on the mic. But that melody combination was given by the enemy. And now when people hear it, they be like, man, every time I hear this, I feel like I want to hit my ex up. You know what I'm saying? You wondering.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It came through. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm thinking about R. Kelly, Bump and Grind, and
Dude,
you know what I mean? Like, that didn't work out too well for him, you know?
If Kirk Franklin come on while you're in the bedroom, it's not. You know what I mean? Let me see
funny.
You know what I'm saying? I've had situations like that. I was still, being in God and then living in sin is really difficult when you trying to put a playlist together and all of a sudden a worship track comes on.
Excuse me real quick. The Lord came in.
But it's evident that I don't want light in this place right now. I want darkness.
Yeah.
And then, stuff like when people are depressed, they want to play dark music. I want to play music that helps me where I am. You know what I mean? And it's dangerous because it could take you down even more. So there is a war against media. So those who are pivotal in the arts or creatives, we go under attack to be silenced. So the spirit of shame was really heavy in my life. I felt more than ever that the enemy was like, I need you to shut up. Because every time you create, you do something. And so when I created Hellway to Heaven was a haunted house. But it was a immersive theater story that people walk through. Because I love haunted houses.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be real with you. As an actor, I hated I couldn't go trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so stupid. I love this. These kids are out here and going trick-or-treating. I never could go trick-or-treating. We would go to church and we call Hallowed Be Thy Name and we dress up Bible characters and walk around one table.
Well, this is so dumb. Give me the braces and the Snickers.
Yeah. I was so mad.
Yeah.
I'm like, and even as a kid, I was like, we're missing it. I was like, we're hiding as the church. That's what we're doing. We're hiding. We're like, we're not a part of the world. We're just in God. We're hiding as a church. And God had put it on my heart after I came out of college.
So you want to reach into darkness.
God has given me a gift to do it.
And reach people where they are. Yes.
He's given me a gift to do it.
That makes sense.
He's given me a gift. And I used to be a little afraid. I was like, God, am I tampering with something? Because I would go to the Halloween stores and buy all the demon masks, the scariest ones I could find. And they'd be like, is he possessed? I'm like, no, God has given me a grace to handle certain levels of darkness. And what I would do is we made our church into a theater. So like the building here, we would like put up black tarp everywhere, and then groups would come up, they'd pull up in buses, and they would come in, and it'd be like dark, and we put smoke everywhere, and they would come into a certain room, and then it'd be like, welcome to Hellway to Heaven. You will go through life, death, and heaven. And we would take them through the different scenes. And I would recreate a club scene. Dude, I would go rent out the biggest subwoofers and big and a club would be right in the middle. And they'd be like, oh, and I would play the biggest hits that were playing that year in music. And people were like, this is hard. This feel like a real club. This is feel like a real club. And then we would have like theater guns. Somebody come in and start shooting. Bam, 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 bam. Dude gets shot. And then all of a sudden a demon would come in and the guy would like wake up and the demon would grab him and take him to hell. Then the whole group had to go to hell with him. So then that would be our basement. All of our young people dressed up in demon costumes down there.
Wow.
And we'd have people in there getting tortured and screaming, and they were getting sawed in half, and people were like, oh my God. Yeah. And then they would go through hell, and then we would have a Satan on a little chair. And people wouldn't know. It was just some like little stools. Like it was so dark. Yeah. But what God would do is he would give us an anointing to make things more scarier. I would see socks. I'm like, man, you're wearing white socks. Take your socks. You know what I mean? Like I would see man, it's tape. It's
wearing white socks.
I would be like, I don't know how people are believing this. But the anointing was on us. And people were so scared, man. Yeah. Somebody came in there and peeing on herself. Man, I was so scared. They would go up to heaven. One of my guys, pure-hearted guy in the church, he played Jesus all the years. And they were like my friends. And people would just be bawling.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, if you look up, you could see the tiles. Like, it's not really heaven.
Yeah.
But there was a glory. And then they would come out of heaven, and they would go into our ministry tent, or our ministry team.
Yeah.
And we would train our evangelism team to do firsthand ministry. And man, people were giving their life to God like crazy.
Yeah.
And one woman, she wants me to do a movie for her about her son's life.
Okay.
He came through Hellway to Heaven and gave his life to the Lord. And not long after that, he got murdered.
Oh, wow.
And she said, I want you to do his movie.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, so we've been talking over the last couple of years, like building a budget to be able to do the film for him. You know.
Now, I had a youth student who he was real rough around the edges. I love this kid, but he was never serious about his faith, and he drank himself to death. And the Lord saved him, but he saw a picture of the doctors working on him, and he descended into hell in his mind. So like I've been with people in the hospital and they're like, oh, I see angels, you know? Mm-hmm. He was the exact opposite, right? Oh, brother, he's living for the Lord right now.
It's that wake-up call.
He's like, Zach, this was the darkest dark I've ever seen in my life. Like, I know that I know that I know now that this is real. This isn't a joke, you know?
Yeah, and that's what God does for some people.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't do that for everybody, but some, he's like, I don't want you to. You're on the way.
Yeah.
You're on the way here, and I got to show you this.
Yeah.
And I love it. I didn't do it last year. I was very discouraged last year, man. And what I felt was God wanted to add a kingdom element to it because I had a lot of hell. Like we took over a 75,000 square foot building in 2022.
Yeah.
And it was so big, we had 3 hells.
Yeah.
Like it was massive.
Yeah.
And I put every dime I had. I had a huge contract through a university. Mm-hmm. And man, I spent $30,000 on a production. I paid all my actors. I had never paid them before. Everybody was doing it for the Lord, you know.
Yeah.
But now they're like, man, I can't get out here, man. I need gas money. I had no actors.
Yeah.
And so I paid every single one of them out of my own pocket. Paid about $16,000 just to staff. And this was money I'd ever had. But through film, I was able to, you know, and this was money I was supposed to be spending on the house.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm doing it for Jesus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was like, my wife was like, you spent all the money? I was like, oh, I thought I was going to come back. I thought I was going to. Man, and it was just like, wow, man. And so I was like discouraged. I was like, God, like, all this gift, all this anointing, like, I feel like we're on our own. You know what I mean? Like, you really be wanting that moment where somebody comes in like, I have the $1 million check to invest in you.
Yeah.
You're like, they're not coming.
And it never comes. Yeah.
You're like,
right.
you know. But what the Lord showed me, he was like, first of all, you can only do this with faith. You never had the money. Ever.
Yeah.
All the years you've done it. You only had faith in a dream. But it's needed. And so now I'm in a place, it's 2024, people are asking, like, are you going to do it again? And I feel it. Like, but we don't have a building. Like, we always have to find a building. You know, we used to do it out of a church. We don't have a church anymore. So we always have to find a building to rent out of, to run the show for a couple weeks. You know what I mean? And so the finances. But I feel the Lord saying, trust me.
Yeah.
Just trust me and walk in faith because people need it. I don't know what God's going to do in this year. Mm-hmm. And I'm finally in a place where everything is not great. You know, everything is not like, oh man, like I'm ready, Lord.
Yeah.
No. I don't think you're ever really truly ready.
Yeah.
I think you just trust him. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I'm in a trusting place where I'm like, okay, God, I've done it my way. I mean, I've been in business and do what I do, and I've experienced some amazing things. A client flew me to Rick Ross's house. Mm-hmm. You know,
I don't know who that is.
He's a big rapper, huge rapper, right?
I know who that is. You know, I'm down with culture. I get it.
You know what I mean? So it flew me to Rick Ross's house, and I'm taking pictures of her, like bam, like
Rick is a female. Okay, I got it.
No, wait. Rick Ross is the guy. It was his mansion.
Okay.
In Atlanta. Okay. Right. So he's a huge rapper, and he had this conference where
I know culture. You know.
It's like, yeah, who was that? It was $25,000 per person to get in. You know what I mean? For this conference, right? And so she was like, I want you to be my photographer and videographer and stuff like that. So like this media field has allowed me to enter in some awesome areas. Yeah. And what I also have found is like I've met more real people. Like, this might sound wild, but we on a podcast and we talking. Is sometimes church people can be so corny. Yeah. You know what I mean? That it's like no one's authentic anymore. No one wants to talk about that they struggle anymore. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so sometimes people in the world, they'll be like, man, this is where I'm at, man. This is where I'm at. You know, and I've always loved talking to people who are just sincere. My favorite people to talk to is recovering addicts. Mm-hmm. I used to be a social worker.
Oh, they're honest.
They have to be.
Yes. Yeah.
Their recovery is in their honesty.
Yeah.
The moment they start lying, they're going to be back.
Yeah.
And so they just give you truth. You be like, we don't really say
like my friend I was telling you about earlier when we were just hanging out. He's like, Pastor, I took him on a trip. He's like, Pastor, I have heroin on me. I'm like, flush it. What are you doing? But he told me about it at least. You know what I mean?
And that level of
you work through like mad and then like, man, I'm really glad he told me that. And I'm really glad he felt that on it. Yeah. It is refreshing.
Yeah, it is. Because that's all we really want.
Yeah.
Is people to really say like, where are you at really?
Yeah.
Like stop with the, I'm okay. Where are you at really?
Yeah.
Just say. And I think we're so afraid to be judged. And we're so afraid to be like marginalized into an idea like or an identity.
Yeah.
That, like, oh, you struggling with this.
Yeah.
I was going to pick you for this, but once you told me that, like, you know, maybe you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people just like, man, I'm going to hold that. And I understand that there are some things that we all reserve. Everybody doesn't need to know every detail. But there are places and platforms where you don't know how much it would help somebody know, like, you're dealing with the same thing.
Right. This is why we're trying to build a church of circles, not rows.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You're looking up at somebody and they're talking. I want the stage to be below.
Yeah.
You know, like people are like looking, you know? And then we break out into groups and like, you know, get honest, get real.
Yep.
It's, there's no other way to do it in my opinion, because we need real.
We need it. And one thing you had said earlier about the ministry and how you build it with just not making it codependent on you. You know, those ministries, and I just being real, when you are the pivotal focus, you know, like your voice, your mindset, people are coming to hear you, and that's great. You can speak well. That's great. You know, you're making people laugh and you're giving good word. It's great. But sustainability is when you get hit or you go down or you need a break. Does those that you have trained have the ability to not just carry the vision, but help these people who need shepherded while you're on sabbatical or whatever the case is?
Right.
So it takes one scandal, dude. One scandal for some of these major, and we've seen it happen, man. We've seen major ministries completely dissolve.
Right.
You know,
that has. And where are these major ministries going to go when the pastor is just at age of retirement? What younger person is now going to take this thing over and be able to carry all that weight? Like, in my opinion, it has to break up into many movements.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's war.
Yeah.
You know, I look at ministry in the kingdom, like in the embassy and ambassadors, it is a war strategy. They sit down, they look at regions, and they say, okay, we're going to come in and we're going to attack in this point. We're going to create a diversion over here, and we're going to send some men here and to hit this. That's what it is. How are we going to get these demons? Like and demons are going, how are we going to get these Christians? You know, because we want to have the territory of Homewood. That's our territory. We need to set up some principalities of drug addiction and child molestation in that region. And we got to place them here. And then so we got to have guardians that come around here. Oh, there's this prayer warrior church right here. We got to shut that down. All right, investigate his life. All right, what's this pastor dealing with? Let's follow him. Is he dealing with any secret pornographic struggle? Is he having an affair? Is he late on his taxes? They study the leaders, right? But when you have somebody,
C.S. Lewis, when he wrote the Screw Tape Letters.
Come on.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
When you have somebody who is surrounded, like if they were trying to get to you, how can we get to him? But you're surrounded with a team, people you could be transparent with and authentic to, and they're praying for you. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're like, man, we can't. It's like force field. We can't, because they're trying to get you.
Yeah.
They're always trying.
Yeah.
They're just like there's angels assigned us, there's demons assigned us.
Right.
Some of them give a report and say, well, how's it going with Pastor Zach? Yeah. Man, I just can't. He's fortified. He gets in with his family. He gets with his ministry team. I try to hit him over here. Nah, I can't hit him there. I got accountability over there. I try to hit him over here. I can't get you.
Right. We say whatever's in the darkness grows. Right? So if you keep it in the dark, that thing is going to continue to grow. Whatever God sheds his light on, he does so to heal. Whatever he reveals, he heals, you know? And we need to live out in the open with people.
We do.
You know?
We do. It's more safe there.
Proud of you, man.
Yeah.
You're doing a good job. Hey, I know.
I'm trying.
I know it's been a crazy up and down. You've had a crazy couple years. Yeah. But you're right where God wants you to be. Yeah. You're doing the right things. I mean, you're focusing on your family right now, and it'll be the right time, and God will open everything up. But I appreciate you, man. Appreciate your friendship.
Yeah, me too, man.
It's nice to reconnect.
Reconnecting. This has been years.
It's been too long.
2007, I left Geneva.
Yeah.
It's 2024. So that's been,
Yeah, but it feels like kind of yesterday, too.
Yeah, yes. You know? Yeah, it has that essence. And I think that's when you have a good friendship.
Yeah.
You can be like separate for years and then you come back and you're like.
Yeah, let's just not do that too often. Yeah. You know? Appreciate you, man.
Dude, you too, man.
Yeah, Caleb's going to run out of space, and I have to use the restroom. My left leg's shaking here because I got to pee.
Go ahead, man.
But
go ahead.
Hey,
This
man,
is great.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything,
Absolutely,
Corey.
bro.
Praying for you, man. Like,
thank you.
Seriously.
And now we have connected. I was curious. What I don't know if I should ask you on the podcast. What made you think of me? to come and
When we reconnected.
at
Just
the
so
at
easy
the
to
station.
talk to. Yeah. Just so easy to talk to. Like, I can talk to Corey about anything.
You can.
For real.
You literally
like I'm
can.
like that's when it really
There's
works.
There's really, to me, because even when you ask me, is there any, I'm being honest with you, man. I even like being transparent about my current pain.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I do. It's healing to me.
Yeah.
If I can recycle pain in some way, it gives it somewhere to live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like, it just, I think people are trying their best to like, everything is good.
Yeah.
And they're cracking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like God can't get in that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'm just like, and then I'm also teachable. Like I'm on television, right? And I was seeing my therapist when they asked me to be on television. And I wasn't happy when they asked me. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Some people were like, oh, there's a great opportunity to be on television. When he asked me, when the producer was like, would you like to spend some time on TV? I was like, I'm going to talk to my family about it. You know, thank you. I left the station. I said, I literally was like, God, I knew this was going to happen. And what it was his calling and the gift and the anointing often has preceded my character. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I would be like, wait. I don't want any doors to open for me.
Yeah.
Just let me rebuild my life.
Let me be alone for
Let
a
me
little
be
bit.
alone until I'm like, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I want to be with you in it.
Yeah.
And so I told my therapist, I said, do you think it's a good idea for me to be on television? I was like, I just stated what you know in my life. And he was like, he said maybe something that brings you closer to God. Maybe a pressure that brings you closer to God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, okay. And then I talked to my family. I said, you guys okay with me? Because I haven't done ministry in a long time. I used to preach all the time. And I stopped just to focus on family. I started getting to a point where it's like, how can I be up here preaching and I don't minister to my family? I don't lead you guys in Bible study. I don't want to be like preaching really good. And I look at my wife and she's like rolling her eyes like, you're a hypocrite. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to deal with that. So I was like, I feel like the family in many times is the resume, if you're worthy, to manage ministry. So I was like, I can't step in ministry until I am leading my wife in the presence of the Lord.
Yeah.
And I just think that's essential, So I started doing TV and people come on interviews and they are ministering to me. I'm live on air.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is really good. And they're like, they all have like books, and they're like one of the producers would be like, Corey, do you want the book? I'd be like, yes, I'd like that.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you very much.
This is great. I'll put it in my library. I'm going home like, this is so good.
Yeah. And then the Lord's like, just ministering to you.
He just ministered to me. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I missed a lot of years ministering to other people. I got into ministry when I was 15.
15? Yeah. That's great. Dude, we just need to keep rolling. That's
I know.
I was about to say,
yeah. There's nothing here. Like, you just, we're having a conversation. You don't need to, you understand all the stuff.
Yeah. So it's just you and me looking at each other. This is great.
Anything else, Caleb?
Nope. That's it.
Great.
Ideas, cameras you're looking over your shoulder at Zach. Camera's looking over Zach's shoulder at you. So
now, you're controlling everything there?
Yeah. No, I just have all the cameras coming back here, so I can just see, listen. So
I feel like I'm a kid at a candy. Dude, I love all this stuff because this is what I do. Like I'm a camera guy. I'm an editor, software programs. Like I'm always dealing with lights and C-stands and everything. Like this is
No, and this space is great just because we have it set up. So it's like I'll be able to come in here and.
I'm gonna have some questions for you before I leave because I want to get an iPod set up to start doing more talking heads, and so I don't know what you're channeling this into, but maybe you can help me.
Yeah, I'm a hardware nerd. I love my gear.
I can tell you got real giddy. Look at that smile. It's like that. Like
you're reading them good. I trust you. You're reading them good. He's like, I'm trying to hide it, but don't show too much emotion.
Because it's hard. It's like when you know so much and then other people don't know like how much these lenses cost and these cameras cost. Dude, there's thousands of dollars of equipment in here. I'm sure this is a lot. And these are Shure mics.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
budget!
I don't know. I don't know much about that
budget!
stuff, honestly. I don't know.
Yep. This is like, what, $238?
Yeah, they're actually close to $400.
You guys got the other Oh, yeah, this...
Yeah. Years of accumulation, though. Right?
No, and
then the consolidation of two ministries into one.
Legitimately, that's exactly what it is. It was actually funny how well some of that like dovetailed because we bought the mics with Tree Line and then like Hill City had this camera set up already and
Yeah.
Dude, this is great though. How's the podcast going?
I don't know. I think it's good.
Yeah.
We're trying to get people to learn how to think, not tell them what to think.
Yeah.
And I think that's a differentiation between our generation and the generation prior. They're like, you think this way, and if you don't think this way, then you're dumb. You're like, okay. Then now what do I think? After that, And so if we can develop a framework of thinking, then people can be empowered truly, right? So
because we're more the intellectual generation.
Yeah, we like to think things through. I want to know why you're telling me not to do that.
Yeah.
Tell me why. Yeah. And then the generation right before us, so you got the boomer generation, you got the Gen Xers, and you got us, the millennials. The generation right before us as Gen Xers, I would walk out of a meeting with some of those guys and they'd be like, yeah, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, you're not going to address it? Like, no, I'm not going to address it. We're just not going to do it. I'm like, why not? They learned to keep their hand on both and not stir the pot very much at all and just, keep moving forward. It's pretty interesting they're like the bridge between the generations. Because boomers don't understand us at all. We don't understand the boomers at all. Like, you just want a manufacturing business. That's all you want, when you look at the boomer church structure. I'm not a manufacturing business. We want creativity. We want to empower people, and they're like, what? Why would you ever do that? That leads to division, So funny, man.
Well, unfortunately, they're checking out. We're up.
Yeah, I know. Now it's our turn. But the Xers are the ones who are like helping us a lot, helping us to stay the course, and not get too crazy on the side of creativity to abandon ship completely.
Because it could be it could be a little bit, it could be wild trying to be so relevant to where we lose the essence of God. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you're winning them, now you are them. You just lost your home.
Right. I don't know where we're going to start the recording. I mean, you can incorporate anything you think is good on this, but
are you already recording?
Yeah. He's been recording. Yeah, that's the way it is. So. Just in case we keep this, Corey Lankford, good to be with you, man.